It's likely at some point in our careers we've had middle managers and probably middle managers we didn't like very much. So, how do we deal with the scourge of middle management? Well, probably the answer is not what you think it is. We've also likely been middle management at some point. Check out this week's Brant's Rant.
Hi, Brant Cooper here. I'm fortunate I get to travel around the world speaking with startup founders, investors, ecosystem developers. I've learned a lot in my travels. I've got some stories, and I have some thinking that I love to share. Welcome to Brant's Rant.
Is there any more reviled group in corporates than the proverbial middle manager? So why is that, and is it fair? In my quest to develop more empathy and to encourage the development of empathy internal into organizations, I've been giving a lot of thought to middle management. I like to say that the reason why I went out on my own was because I was a bad employee, and so needed to not have a boss. And I think it grew out of the frustration of middle management, right? Because you maybe at one point, at least I did, had a relationship with founders or CEOs, and those people are so busy that a lot of them have this nature of, in the startup world anyway, uh, of giving people responsibilities and just expecting them to go do it, right? So that's kind of the nature of empowerment. And as these companies grow, though, typically they start layering in this middle management because they themselves can't have that many reports, right? And so what's the number of people say you can't have more than 8 or something like this? And so you start layering in this middle management, and really founders are often encouraged to structure their companies to make them look like big businesses. And as I've stated in the past, that structure that based upon departments and then creating this hierarchy of middle management is really an extension of the assembly line. It's creating an organizational structure that looks like an assembly line, where the responsibilities of those departments is really on the management of execution of the known. So managing tasks that must get done in order to have the outcomes that we know result from those tasks being done. So that was great during the 20th century. Businesses, markets, technology, everything was a little bit simpler, and the blueprint was pretty well known. Not the case now. Digital revolution changes all of that. Computers in our pockets changes all of that. The empower has gone out to the edge, and so inside the companies, we also then have to be able to empower the edge of the internal of the company in order to respond to the power that's on the edge in the external to the company. So this is the rise of Agile, right? I like to say that the team is the new unit of work, and this is the rise of Agile. The concept of Agile is you're assembling a team of 8 people who are assigned a mission, and this team is self-organized and able to figure out what's the best way to solve their particular mission. And they should be given a metric, and there's some value statements that I think that they should also be given that regulate their behavior. And then they should be allowed to go out and solve the problem that's represented in their mission. Well, so great. You've got these supposedly empowered teams that can go off and do this. So what is the manager's job anymore? And I think it's an underinvested part of large corporations, is that we haven't thought of the role of the middle management inside of this agile organization. And I think much of this comes from Agile as being a set of behaviors as described in the original manifesto, and Agile being a structure itself. And Alistair Cockburn, one of the original signatories to the Agile manifesto, pointed this out to me. And he really talked about a lot of the corporate implementations of, Agile with a capital A are really more about structure than they are about behavior. And so he's launched these products and this thinking around what he calls the Heart of Agile. And I think it's spot on. And so I think there are structural components to Agile. There are process components to many of the implementations of Agile that I find valuable, and I think they should be brought to all corners of a company. But structure of Agile without the ethos and the principles and the behaviors that we want to see out of Agile is only just going to be morphed in a way that reinforces the existing behavior rather than changes behavior. And so if in fact we have Agile teams behaving in the ways that we want to, defined by Heart of Agile or defined by the manifesto or defined based upon maybe the cultural aspects of companies like Zappos or Spotify, where truly some of these teams are empowered to figure out how to solve problems. And many, of course, startups are that way. And I think a lot of the big tech companies are sort of naturally that way. But so that's sort of this foundational unit is the Agile team that's behaving in ways that we want them to behave. They look outside themselves and take in more information, so they're aware. They're aware of other dynamics inside the organization as well as external. And because they're planning their work together, then that means that they can change their plans, say within a sprint, in order to reflect the changes that are going on inside or outside of the organization. I mean, it's sort of what the word Agile means. I call that dynamic in order to not overuse the word Agile, but a dynamic team is quick on their feet and able to change course based upon what they learn based, from their awareness. So that's great. We need to define that behavior. We need to teach that where those skills need to be developed inside of those teams. And to me, that's the unit of work. And a matter of fact, early in the pandemic, I talked about how even if you have employees that are not on a team, put them on a team anyway. And so it could be a loose assembly of a team because everybody working from home, a manager can't manage all of those individuals in any effective manner. Yet if you put them on a team and those people like just get video running or even just audio and they're working together on their own projects even, but as a social entity, then that social entity is going to sort of do the management. They're going to sort of hold each other accountable to getting stuff done and encourage each other. And if any one member is having a bad day, then the others cover. And so there's a unit aspect to that, which keeps the mission moving forward. It's not just based upon, there's no like broken link in there when you have not everybody optimized at sort of a manager via the sole contributor level. That managers just can't do that today, and it slows the company down, and you're not agile or dynamic and all of those things. But so if you think along those lines, then what you have are, in your division or your group, you have several of these agile teams. The old structure is that the manager is taking priorities for the group, priorities from their leaders, and telling these people what to do. And the difference in agile is that you don't get to tell them what to do anymore. Well, so what is the manager supposed to be doing? And so I think that it's an underinvested part of these corporations, and we've worked with agile teams that were facing this dilemma. And the example would be that there's still sort of this old school hierarchical nature of the agile organization that ends up making decisions where those decisions should belong to the team. And an example might be you're developing product and the agile team itself applies this behavior that we want to see. So understanding customers' needs, talking to customers, perhaps designing experiments to try to validate, what's required to solve these needs. and using that sort of evidence in order to create what a sprint might contain, like, so what the actual engineering work that is going to be done. And yet there'll be a product owner or a product manager or some other named entity who is within a hierarchy that overrules the evidence because they're getting pressure from their leadership in order to do XYZ, right? So that it's I've told the story before of the way I got into product management was originally with a startup that had no product management, and the VP of sales would literally walk into the cube of an engineer and tell them what to code because supposedly some big deal was contingent upon that. And it really rarely worked out to be the case that the deal was closed with or without that particular feature. But that's sort of that's one of the dangers of that type of hierarchy, of that type of relationship. You have people making decisions based upon whims and biases and even, legitimate concerns that this is the way things are going to need to be. People are earnest about that stuff, whether they're right or wrong. But the point is that it's the responsibility, in this edge world, that the people closest to the customers that understand the needs and then also understand the technology in this example. So understand what's possible, what are the possible ways of solving a particular problem, that those are the ones that should be deciding, not this, what in the end is like an arbitrary hierarchical decision-making process. And so, we've worked with these teams where the teams their evidence is being overruled by the hierarchy. And that's a problem, right? Your products just aren't going to do as well. And in my view, it's because this middle management, multiple layers of middle management haven't been given a new role. How do they deal with, right? The reason why middle management is such a it's almost like an insult is because everybody has one, right? So everybody doesn't like their middle manager. Everybody doesn't like their, to a certain extent, I'm exaggerating, but in my days, the reason why I didn't like my middle manager is because didn't you hire me because I have some abilities? And so then you want me to leverage my abilities to think? If I'm just supposed to do what you say, then you need to hire somebody else. You don't need me. And so that's what, there's multiple layers of that inside the organization. Why are you telling me what to do? Why are you telling me how to manage my teams? Didn't you hire me in order to manage my teams?
Hey, thanks for listening to Brandt's Rant. If we're choosing capitalism here as a society, then let's make it work for a better world. If you'd like to join me as we redefine capitalism for the 21st century, go to beatcoop.co/D4A. Also, if you have a pressing issue that you're facing in your innovation group, your product group, your startup, and want to join me on video, see the link below. Subscribe, like, see you next time.